Fountain Theater, was the winner of four NAACP Theater Awards. Benson's honors include the Lily's Lorraine Hansberry Award, Dramatists Guild Fellow, NYSCA's Individual Artist Award, Sony Pictures Television Diverse Writers Fellow, Zoetrope's Grand Prize for Original Screenplay, and Sam French OOB Festival winner. Her plays have had productions at Williamstown Theater Festival, the Fire This Time Festival, Fountain Theater, Billie Holiday Theater, Crossroads Theater, Juggernaut Theater, and Ensemble Studio Theaters, New York City, where she is a company member. Development workshops at Atlantic Theater Company, the Playwright Center, and Oregon Shakespeare Festival, among others. She's a recipient of Sony's Teaching Artist Award for Innovative Curriculum. Her plays have been published by DPS, Samuel French, Concord Theatricals, and Routledge. She's a proud member of the Writers Guild of America and the Dramatists Guild. Welcome, Luce Benson.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for showing up. I'm excited to work with you. If you are brave enough to turn your cameras on, I'd love to see you, but no pressure. I know I think this is being recorded or live streamed, so I get it. But feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, or use any of oh, there's some people. Hi, Angel and Logan. Uh, so I wanted to ask a question first. How many of you have written a play or have done any playwriting, taken any playwriting classes? I just want to gauge where we're at. You can raise your virtual hand if you've written a play before, worked on a play, or working on a play. See, Kristen. Okay, no hands. Okay, okay, great. Good. So this will be fun. What I plan to do today, I'm going to go through a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about structure, a little bit about character. We're going to do some writing prompts. Hopefully, we'll have some time to share, and I do want to leave some time for Q&A. So any questions you have about not just playwriting, but I've worked in television, I've done some work in film, or anything else you want to ask me about the craft or the business. I do want to make time for that too. So I'd love to start with some prompts. So wherever you are, if you have a notebook, a journal, or your laptop handy, I am going to share the screen in a second, but I always like to start with some form of mindfulness. That's just part of my process before I sit down to write. So whether that is meditation, breath work, sometimes taking a walk, sitting in nature, whatever I need to do. So just to get us present. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can. And I just want us to take a deep breath in together and exhale it out. And we'll do that again. And exhale. And this last time, if you're comfortable putting your hand on your heart, getting connected with your creativity, deep breath in. And exhale with a little bit of sound. And hopefully we're all present. So before I share the screen, there are 4 prompts. You can respond to each one of them, or you can pick 1 or 2. I'm going to give you like 5 to 7 minutes. And when I do prompts, you can respond in any way you want to. So you can turn it into a monologue. You can answer like you were writing in your journal. You can make lists. I love lists. They're a great way for me to get my mind organized. So please feel free to respond in any way you want to. Let me share my screen. So hopefully you can see that. If I need to make it bigger, let me know. Um, so the first one is, where in the world am I right now? And you can answer that in any way you want, literally, metaphorically, any way you want. Um, what story am I dying to tell? And again, any way you want. So that could be, a story that you want to write, that you want to create a piece of art with, or it could just be like something that happened to you yesterday that you're dying to tell someone. Answer it any way you want. What story will I take to my grave? Is there anything that you want to take to your grave that you'd be willing to write now? And you don't have to share all these. And if I could be anything, have anything, or experience anything, what would it be? So I'll give you some time. And again, you can answer all of them. You can pick one, you can do a couple, however you want. Got about 30 seconds, so just wrap up your last sentence or two. Okay. Pens down, hands up. Um, would anyone like to share? We don't have time to hear everyone, but if there's anyone who would like to share, we can maybe hear one or two.
Oh, it sounds like Fran's signal is a little
Nope.
weak, but is asking if somebody would like to share from one of the prompts, their response. Great opportunity to be brave and claim your space. Got a couple ringers in here I know who usually do respond. What do you think? Share a little, or you could talk about which prompt you chose and what you decided to write about. You could tell us versus reading the actual thing if you want. And it looks like France had a little signal issue, and so we'll probably come back in a moment, but would love to hear. Oh, there she is. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you now. Great.
Okay, great. Did anyone want to share? I don't think I saw any hands. All right, that's fine. Uh,
I'll share. I don't mind.
oh, great. Go ahead.
Yeah. The prompt that I decided to address is, where in the world am I now? I am currently in the pursuit of balance in my life. Right now, I'm currently lost and trying to find hints to find my way back. Every time I find a hint to get back, something trips me up or holds me back. I have made myself be more selfish to pursue what I want, but guilt and responsibility haunt me. And that's where I ended it.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Love that. Is there anyone else before I move on? Logan, did you want to share? Or did you just want to share that in the chat?
I just put it in the chat, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about structure and my process. And a lot of my process, oftentimes I begin when I'm writing plays, but most everything that I write, I actually start with theme. Um, there are oftentimes themes, things that I'm working through in my own life or things that are happening in the world or in my community that are sort of stirring in my brain. And so um, or sometimes there's a subject matter that I'm interested in exploring or a historical event. So I usually start with theme, which is why I like these prompts. Um, a lot of these prompts I use as generative ideas and sometimes just to help me even understand like what's activating within me in any given moment because, I can get so caught up in just the day-to-day of life and minutia or relationships that I often don't know what's really tugging in my heart. So those prompts help me with that. And theme is where I tend to find story. So when I know what I want to write about, when I know what I'm interested in exploring, what I'm curious about, before I start forcing an idea, I just explore that theme. I explore that subject, and I do that through research. I do that through reflective writing. I do that through discussion. I love interviewing folks. I've written some plays. I think one of the plays that was sent to Detained was all based on interviews. Uh, so, and once I get clear on what that theme, what that subject is, and what my point of view is on that, that's how I start to develop a story. Um, and so in plays, theme is revealed through the characters. You know, if you read a play or you see a play and you're not sure, like, what was this about? Or you're trying to understand it deeply, you look to the protagonist. I look to the protagonist. And whatever that protagonist's objectives are, whatever that protagonist's main conflict is, that's where the theme exists. And that's how I can understand deeply what that writer is really trying to say and what their point of view is. So for example, I think you read my play The Talk. I see some questions. I'll get to them. Uh, you know, the characters in the talk, um, the protagonist, Manu, is a woman who's recently widowed and wakes up her daughter wanting to know how to use a vibrator, and her daughter is someone who struggled with her own sexuality. And, the play is about their relationship, and it's about this moment, this night where this thing happens between them. But what I wanted to explore was women's sexuality within um, from my cultural perspective as a Haitian American, and how that has shifted through generations. That's what I was interested in exploring. And I was specifically interested in exploring um, women of a certain generation who were raised in a culture, how they experienced their sexuality. And so I did that through those characters. So hopefully that makes sense. Another example is, I'm sure a lot of you have read the play A Raisin in the Sun. Walter Lee wants to use this money that was inherited from his father's pension, and he wants to start a business. And that's really what the story of the play is about, him trying to start this business. And through his objective, through all of the actions that he takes and the obstacles that he faces in the play, we understand the larger themes, what Lorraine Hansberry was exploring, which is the American dream, the struggles, the challenges of Black Americans during this time and historically. But we learn that through that character. Uh, so once I have a character in mind, then I start to build that character. So what I'd like to do now is I'm gonna offer you some questions. So if you have an idea, you think you have an idea for a play that you've been thinking about, and even if you don't, if there's something that you're working on that could be turned into a scene or a play, I want you to think about your main character. And if you don't have an idea for anything, just think about a character that you'd like to create. And these are some of the questions that I ask myself when I'm starting to build a character in a play that I'm writing. So some of these questions are, some of them are the basics, give the character name, how old they are, what do they do, um, what is their family life? So married, single, siblings, um, what is their financial life? Are they middle class? Are they economically disadvantaged? Are they wealthy? Um, and then I go to deeper questions. So it's just like, if when you're trying to get to know someone, like when you're dating or meeting someone new, the kinds of questions that help you really understand who this person is. What is their sense of humor? Do they have a sense of humor? What were the most deeply impressive political or social events that they experienced? What is their highest level of education? Who are their primary relationships? Who are the primary relationships in their life? Do they live alone? If they live alone, do they like living alone? What was their upbringing like, their family situation? Do they come from a two-parent household? Single father, single mother? Were they adopted, orphaned? And some of the really important questions. What are their flaws? What are their biggest flaws? What are their fears? What is their greatest fear? What do they want? And that just doesn't have to be what do they want in the play, like what do they want? And again, like I love lists. So when I'm in the early stages of developing a character, I like to make a list of all the things they want, from a pair of shoes to world peace to true love. What are all the things that they want? And what are their secrets? And thank you, Dr. Ogden, for putting those in the chat. I also have a handout of this, so I can share it with you, and if you want to send it to them after the workshop. And so another exercise that I really love is writing a monologue. And I believe you all worked on some monologues in preparation for this workshop. So I don't think I need to go too into detail of what a monologue is, but basically a monologue in a play is when one character um, gives a longer speech. And monologues in plays are really tricky because there needs to be a really strong need that the character has to speak for that long. And a great exercise to get inside of a character is to think about a secret and a need. And then place the character in an environment that makes sense for your play or makes sense for um, the theme that you're exploring. And place that character in that environment and have someone else walk into the space, someone who they have a relationship with, and then have them tell this person this secret out of a need. So they need something, they want something, and they are going to reveal this secret in order to get it. And if you want to play with that, I can give you a couple minutes to start something. So your character is expressing a need. They're revealing a secret based on a need, an objective, something that they want. And monologues should have a beginning, middle, and end. And we're going to talk about structure a little bit in a few minutes. But you want to think about your character starting in one place at the beginning of the monologue and being in a completely different mental space, emotional space by the end of the monologue. I want to share my screen now, and if you're still writing, that's okay. We can come back to it. I want to talk a little bit about structure because once I have a really good sense of who my protagonist is and uh, who the other supporting characters are, then I'm ready to kind of start writing. And to be honest, when I write plays, it's a lot more organic. I don't always have the whole story figured out. Um, it's definitely different when I'm writing for television, where things have to be outlined beat by beat, because that's just the nature of how writers' rooms work. And TV is a little bit more formulaic. You need to like really follow a structure pretty strictly, pretty rigidly, and you don't have to necessarily in plays. As playwrights, we often play with structure. Um, However, if you're someone who likes to outline before you start writing, or you like to have everything figured out, I'm going to talk a little bit about dramatic structure. I'm sure some of you have seen these are previously, but in plays, basic structure in plays, you start with an inciting incident. And that usually you don't see that in the play. An inciting incident is something that breaks the status quo. So your protagonist, there's a status quo, and then something has happened that breaks the status quo, which uh, starts the play, which is what the play is founded on. So again, if I use A Raisin in the Sun, we don't ever see the father. We don't see his death, but his death is the inciting incident because it's his death that is the reason why this money is coming in. The attack is when we know the major dramatic question, and the major dramatic question is the conflict. And then we have rising actions, which is a series of complications and obstacles. We have a crisis that happens right before the climax usually, and then the climax is the highest point of tension and the resolution. So the conflict we know is a struggle between two opposing forces. Um, it can be man versus man versus nature, man versus society. Sometimes you can think about conflict thematically, a group of people against a force. In my play, Detained, which doesn't follow traditional structure, but the conflict is the undocumented community struggling against legislation that is inhumane, oppressive, depending on what you think politically. But so there's different ways to think about conflict, but there's always a struggle. We talked about major dramatic question and conflict. The attack again is when we know the major dramatic question. So, and the attack is, it's something that you sense. So a lot of times when you're watching a play or you're watching a movie or you're reading a play or book, there's a moment where you kind of know what the main conflict is. You kind of know what the hook is. That's the attack. And again, oops. The major dramatic question, it's a central question that drives the action of a play and it moves the story forward. Romeo and Juliet, the major dramatic question, will Romeo and Juliet be together? That's like the question that's driving the whole story. Hamlet, will Hamlet avenge his father's death? Rising action, we're not going to get into that today in our writing, but it's a series of obstacles and complications that become more and more difficult as the play goes along. So the stakes should be getting higher. And all of the rise in action eventually leads to a crisis. And the crisis is a point of no return, something that can't be reversed, and it leads directly to the climax. And the climax is the highest point of tension. Not all plays have a crisis. Sometimes it's just the climax. But in most plays, if you really look at the anatomy of how they're constructed, there's usually a crisis. There's usually, Romeo and Juliet, um, Romeo dying is the crisis. It can't be reversed, and that's what leads to the climax, which is when Juliet takes her own life. We're not going to do these, but these are just some questions. If you do have a play that you're working on, these are some things that I use to story map. So I think about what is the status quo for my main character? What was their life like before the play starts? And what is the incident that breaks the status quo? Somebody comes to town, somebody dies. They find out that there is going to be this big show that they're going to audition for, whatever it is. What is the major dramatic question? These are some of these questions I use more when I have a draft and I'm starting the revision process. I look through the draft that I have and I ask myself, what is the major dramatic question? Is that clear? Is there clear conflict in my play? Again, when I'm on to a second draft, I'll look through the first draft and check, are there obstacles? What are they? What are the complications my characters face? What's the climax? And does it resolve your conflict? So the climax of a play should resolve the conflict, whether it's positively or negatively, the conflict is resolved through the climax. And these are some fun exercises that I do for myself as well to help me with structure. So this is a fairy tale outline. I'll take my play and try to respond to these in a sentence. So once upon a time, there was a woman named Manu, or whoever your protagonist is. Every day, and that is the status quo, every day, whatever it is for your character. But one day, and that would be the inciting incident. Something happens one day that breaks the status quo. And because of that, those are all complications and obstacles in the plot until finally, and that's your climax, and ever since then, and that's your resolution. So that's a really simple way for me to really like distill my story and make sure that it's structurally sound. These are some other exercises. This is the story of you'll put your protagonist's name in there, who status quo until one day, and then what's the inciting incident. So now blank must, and whatever their objective is, in order to, and whatever their motivation is. But when whoever the protagonist attempts to blank, they, and then all the obstacles and complications until finally they, and whatever the climax is. So this is a really great exercise too, to really help me distill my story. I'll just leave it up for a little bit in case anybody wants to write it down. And I see you have questions, and I will definitely get to your questions. And then I love doing haikus. So a really fun exercise is if I can distill my story into a haiku, and that's more thinking about theme. That's not as much as structure. But if I think about what my play's theme is, what message I'm trying to convey, can I distill it down into a haiku? So let me go to some of your questions, and then we'll do a little bit more writing.
Do you need help facilitating those? I can scroll back for you, or would you like people to raise their hands and ask?
We can do both. I see there were some in the chat.
Yeah.
So we can go to those first, and then I'll take raise hands.
Yeah, one of the questions was Martin says, how do you come up with prompts for yourself? And I was wondering what got you into playwriting as a genre for your writing and exploration?
Um, Great questions. So I'll answer Martin's first. I collect prompts. I mean, sometimes they come into my head, and I have a file where I keep writing prompts. So when I think of them, I'll put them in the file. But also, just over the years, writing workshops that I've taken, prompts that were used when I was doing my MFA, when I was doing my bachelor's, like the ones that felt really evocative or useful, I just jot them down. I keep them all in a file. Um, Sometimes I have a planner here. I did a retreat this summer, and I got this planner, and there are prompts in here. So I just collect them. I just collect them. Um, Honestly, some of the dating profiles have interesting prompts. So on some of the, I mean, if you're single and dating, or not, you can make a fake profile just to look for prompts because some of them have some interesting questions because the point of those prompts is to get to know the person, and so yeah, so those kinds of questions I find helpful, but I collect them everywhere. Um, when I'm out socially, sometimes people ask me really interesting questions, and I think, oh, I should write that down. That'll be a good question to use as a prompt for a class. So, I mean, I come up with them all the time, everywhere. So hopefully that answers your question. So how I got into playwriting, I started as an actor. I started acting when I was like 12, and I went to a performing arts middle school for theater, and I was strictly acting, and I did a performing arts. I went to a performing arts high school, and then I did my bachelor's in theater as an actor. And that's when I started like exploring playwriting. And I think the biggest motivation for me was that just most of the plays that we were reading and the plays that we were doing just didn't have, I just wasn't seeing myself represented. And I wasn't feeling really challenged with the kinds of parts I was getting. A lot of times I was getting cast, a lot of the actors of color in my program, we would get cast in like, playing like a 60-year-old when I was 18, or, just like I played a lot of non-humans. Like I played Titania, I think like 4 different times from A Midsummer Night's Dream. So I just wanted to write plays with characters that I could play. And I also wanted to write plays with characters that my peers and other actors that I really admired could play. So that's kind of how I started. But then I found that I was I was pretty good at it, but that's what was being reflected back to me, and I enjoyed it. And after I got my bachelor's, I moved to New York. And when I first moved to New York, I was acting and writing. And again, I just found myself wanting to create work, not as much for myself. Like after a couple of years in New York, I was really interested in writing plays for Black actors because I knew so many Black actors who were so talented and weren't getting roles. And so I felt like that was a service that I had a skill and I was able to provide that service. And then I also found that I was getting opportunities as a playwright more frequently than I was getting cast in things. And I did not like auditioning. I hated auditioning. I just wanted people to call me and just offer me a part. Like, I really didn't like auditioning. So I just naturally started to gravitate to playwriting and then finally decided that I really wanted to study the craft because all of my training was as an actor. So then I decided I would go to grad school and I went to Carnegie Mellon to get an MFA in dramatic writing, where I did playwriting, screenwriting, and television writing. But that was sort of my path. And it was really just out of like representation, just wanting to create roles for other people. And was there another question?
I see Adrian, you have your hand up. Adrian, go ahead.
Yeah, first off, I just really wanted to say that I love the plate detained, especially in the times that we're living in now.
Yeah.
More so, I would want to reveal like when reading it, I did feel a little bit emotional because I felt like it's a play that directly reflected me because I'm under DACA.
Mm,
So like learning the different scenarios that the many of the characters were dealing with where it was very because it's real. It's what happens. It's the fear that I am living in with today, and that many people around me are living with. So
hmm
like being able to kind of read it in the different perspective and different scenarios, like the one that I related to the most is when the kid who had had a tattoo when he was a child to impress a woman, when he was detained because he was buzzed and sent back to El Salvador. I feel like that might be a scenario that many people will experience. And it's unfortunate his situation that since he's not able to speak the language very well, he had to stick to the tourist areas and eat
hmm
that only that food because if he was anywhere else, he's going to be attributed to not be a tourist and be affiliated with the gang. Thankfully, I am able to speak the language, but like any second, one can be sent back. Even saying like, "Look, I have this. Look, I have that." Uh, it's scary. It's scary, and I just really love that play. Thank you for writing that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Adrian. And yeah, I feel for you. It is so scary. And I wrote that play uh in 2000, I want to say 12, 11. So it's like it's crazy that it's still so relevant and that it's things have gotten worse. And that play, they're all true stories, every single one of them. They're based on interviews. I was commissioned by Judy Rubinovitz, who's director of immigration rights at the ACLU,
Mhm.
and she the character Claudia is based on her. She's been an immigration attorney for like 50 years and was just fed up and wanted more people to know what was happening. And when she first approached me about that play, it wasn't, I think, not as many people knew what was happening in detention centers. Um, a lot of people did not know that people who were being detained and deported were people who've been living here for a long time. And so that's how that play came about, but it was all based on interviews. So every one of those stories are true, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you. And I'm trying to get it produced out here. I'm in Oceanside, which is part of San Diego County right now. And, because things are so dire right now for the immigration community, even people who are documented. So yeah, that play means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor Brown.
Yes, hello. There's actually two questions that were in the chat first, so I'll just read those
Okay.
and then I'll ask my question. So one was, how have the cultural differences in your life influenced your work?
Mm.
And then I'll read the second one after you answer that.
Oh, that's a good question. The cultural differences in my life. Um, who asked that question?
That was from John.
John. Uh, Do you want to clarify? I mean, I can answer in the way that I understand. Well, I'll just answer, and then if you have a follow-up question. Um, so I was born in Africa, in the Congo, but both of my parents are from Haiti. My father was working there at the time, and we immigrated to America when I was a baby. And we moved around a lot, and we settled in Miami when I was about 7. So I have a lot of cultural influences just within my own family and experience. But then also growing up in Miami, I grew up around all kinds of, Cuban, Jamaican, Bahamian, Venezuelan. My best friend in high school was from Argentina, like just everywhere. So I really became interested in writing about the immigrant community. I'm really interested in stories of the Afro diaspora. One of the things that I found when I started writing plays and I started like getting my work out was a lot of the gatekeepers in theater, and I think it's still the same, but a lot of artistic directors and producers were very limited in their thinking as far as like what is a Black story or what is the narrative of a Black American. And like that is we're not a monolith. And when I think of Black people, I think of the entire Afro diaspora, and there are so many stories and points of views and spiritual uh, traditions and like so I'm interested in writing about the Black American experience from like a Pan-African lens, a global lens. Um, and the other piece is that during the time that I grew up, uh, the Haitian community was the target of a lot of xenophobia, a lot of hate, and it came from everywhere. It came from Black Americans, white people, like it just, and so when I started writing plays, when I first started writing plays, I wasn't really writing about my culture. I was just writing, I was young, I was writing about like relationships, really generic. And then the first full-length play I wrote um, was about a family living in Haiti during the Duvalier dictatorship, and it took place on the night of the coup. And the protagonist was a woman who had been raped by a Tonto Makut, which is the civilian army during the dictatorship. And now that the dictatorship was ending, um, she wanted to tell her family what happened to her. And that play actually came out of that was when I was doing my bachelor's and I was a senior. Oh, thank you, Professor Brown. Um, I'll see you later. Thank you. Um, yeah, that play was supposed to be a one-person show. So when I was doing my bachelor's in theater, upon graduation, we all had to write a one-person show and perform it. And I was going to write a one-person show about Michelle Duvalier, who was the first lady, who was like this really crazy character. Like she had a walk-through freezer where she kept her fur coats in Haiti. I don't know why she needed fur coats in Haiti, but she was really extravagant. And I was just going to write about her. But then when I started researching, I just became really fascinated with that, how that dictatorship came to be and Haiti's history, a lot of things that I never knew about um, my own history and the music and the art and how it's all interwoven. And so then I wrote this full-length play. And from that moment on, I became really determined to tell our stories. Like that kind of became my mission statement because there was no representation of Haitian people. And then over the years throughout my career, I became interested in representation for all um, people of color, all people across the Afro diaspora. So I hope that answers your question. That's kind of how my culture influences my work. I
That's
think there
incredible.
was,
And I feel like I love that answer. Thank you for that. And I feel like plays in particular, this live stage in particular, is a space where so much good work can be done for that because it puts live bodies on the stage and things are, it's different than watching movie or television, that we're like in company and presence all together at the same moment with this, you know,
Mhm.
live body on the stage that's this character that is maybe representative of what we haven't seen before or what's been excluded before. So I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, that's why I love theater.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't pay as much as TV and film, but
No.
the experience of watching a play, you can't compare it. You're having a real emotional, visceral experience that's shared with other people. And, if you go to see a play more than once, like it's never going to be exactly the same. Every performance is going to be different.
Yeah.
And I just found that I've been able to impact people in a really different way, a
Yeah.
really special way,
Very
through
powerful.
live theater.
We have about maybe 5 or 10 minutes left, and I know we have another question from Logan, and then Professor Brown's question. But Logan's question was: do you often have a favorite character in your plays? If so, is it usually the main character or a different character in a different role?
That's a great question. I've never thought about it because I really do love all my characters and I love all my plays. I really do. But I guess I do have favorite characters. Um, and it's not always the protagonist because sometimes characters surprise me as I'm writing them. I have a play, Fatty's Last Dance. It's a comedy that gets produced a lot. And the protagonist, I love her. She's this woman who she comes from a family of dancers, and after her father died, she gained weight and stopped dancing, but she has this sister. Uh, I'm just gonna very quickly. So that play, I wanted to write a play about body image. That was like, I often start with a theme. I wanted to write a body image. And before I started writing the play, I didn't have an idea for the story. I got a bunch of my girlfriends together and I was like, I just want to have a discussion about body image. And everybody talked either about their mother or their sisters. And I don't have any sisters, so it was really illuminating to me to hear like how their body image was influenced by their relationship with their mothers and the sisters. So, anyways, I created this character of the sister, and the sister is a reality star, a reality TV star, and she just became so, I don't, she's just so funny and wild and out there. Like, so she's my favorite character in that play, but she's not the protagonist. But I just love all her lines. And I know that I wrote it, but like sometimes it just, the dialogue just comes through me. I don't feel like I'm writing it. And I just love her. Like, I would love to just hang out with her. If she was a real person and was on a show, I would watch her show. I love her. But yeah, so I guess I do have favorite characters. Adrian talked about Freddie, the character Freddie. Like he's probably one of my favorites in Detained. Again, I love them all. But yeah, I also love that character. Yeah, that's a good question.
Awesome. And then Professor Brown's question was, can you talk more about your work doing installations and how that connects to being a playwright?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of immersive theater. And immersive theater is it's it's not just interactive. Immersive theater is usually site specific, and you're creating theater where the audience becomes part of the storytelling, and you're taking them through an experience. So I work with a company in Miami, Juggernaut Theater, that only does immersive theater. And so the work that I've done with them, the first time they commissioned me was a project called Miami Bus Stop Stories.
Hmm.
And I wrote 5 pieces about 5 historically Black neighborhoods in Miami. And it was for young audiences, it was for high school students, and they get on a bus and they travel to all these neighborhoods and they have an experience in each of those neighborhoods. And then I just did a show with them last year. Um, they got a grant to expand Miami Bus Stop Stories, and we wrote a show to be performed in a museum, uh, History Museum Miami. And so the play was about the entire history of Miami from the first indigenous people who actually came from Siberia. They walked from Siberia and to the present, and like got into like how Miami was founded, which it was pretty much founded by women actually, and Black men who were not like acknowledged, and the Black resistance movement, and like Miami's history of crime, and like immersive theater I love because it's such a challenge because it's just a different kind of storytelling. Um, And again, it's not just about like audience interaction. It's really about allowing the audience to feel like they're part of the storytelling, um, and that they're having an experience that takes them by surprise. That, with both of those projects, uh, it was also about like teaching history that had been hidden. So that's the work I've done in installation immersive. But yeah, I love doing immersive theater, and theater is also like uh, part of where theater is going, in my opinion, because this administration, like I think, institutions are really in peril right now. Oh, I think I just froze.
No, we can hear you.
You can? Okay. Yeah, so I think a lot of theater makers are really looking to immersive theater, site-specific theater, because a lot of these institutions, sadly, they may not survive. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but a lot of theaters may not survive what's happening to the arts right now.
We have a question from Angel. How do you approach the revision process? How do you overcome the fear of revision or
Oh my
losing the
God.
magic of the original draft? Great
Oh
question.
my God. Well, a lot of those exercises that I shared with you are things that I do in the revision process. How do I overcome the fear? Oh my God, I just have to do it. I just have to do it. And I guess I was just talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. I'm actually going to New York next week. I'm having a workshop of a play, and a workshop is where, the plays had a few drafts, and the theater company is considering producing it. And so we do a 1 week where we work with a director and actors, and we do some blocking, and I do rewriting, and we do a presentation, and so the theater can decide whether they want to produce it or not. And so I've been working on a revision of that play in preparation for the workshop next week, and it's so hard doing revisions. It's so hard. I don't know, it doesn't get easier. And sometimes I hate it and it's painful. But I was telling my friend was what I love the most is being in rehearsals. I love being in the rehearsal room. I love collaborating. I love working with actors and a director and like just getting in there with other artists. And so the revision process, like what motivates me is like I have to do this part so I can get to the part that I really love. It's just necessary. Like I just, it's like, if you want to lose weight and you don't like exercising, but you have to do it so you can get to your goal. And a lot of those exercises that I shared with you are things that I've created or learned to make the revision process less daunting. So, instead of like reading through my script over and over again, trying to like nail down the story and like get all the beats right, like if I just think about, okay, let me do a fairy tale, that makes it fun. So I don't have to feel like, oh, this is such hard work, or writing a haiku, like if I've lost the thread of like, what is this story about? You know, um, Writing a haiku, I feel like I'm frozen again. Writing a haiku
You're not. We got you.
makes it fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay. I have a question that somebody just sent me privately to ask you, and then we have one more question to wrap it all up. But that question
Okay.
was, what should students do if they're interested in getting involved in playwriting and they maybe have a play or they want to workshop a play or, get that out into the world?
Great question. So one, take a playwriting class if you can. So if there are any at your school, if there are any
There
locally where you
are.
live, take a playwriting class. And if there aren't any at your school, there are plenty. Like you can go to the Dramatist Guild, and you can find workshops. And you can also, even if you're not in a class, if you've written something and you want to, figure out how to get it up, get a group of people to read it out loud,
Yes.
do a reading of it. And it doesn't have to be for an audience. It could just be with, a group of writers, artists that you really trust and love. You have to hear it out loud. It's really important because theater, it's meant to be seen, experienced, staged, and you will learn a lot when you hear it. Um, you can also, I mean, those are the most important things. And there are a lot of like opportunities. I just did in June, this theater in Atlanta, Horizons Theater. They do a Young Playwrights Festival
Mm,
every year, and they you have to submit, but then there are college students who either have just graduated or about to graduate who come and spend a week and they get a commission and they get playwrights like myself. I was one of the mentors. They get playwrights who are working in the industry to mentor them for a week. And it's amazing. Like they get so much time and attention. It was really intense. Like they were there every day from 9:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night, and we did all kinds of workshops with them and we guided them through writing their plays. They wrote short plays, and at the end of the week, the theater hired actors, professional actors, and hired professional directors and staged their plays. And so there are a lot of like festivals like that. So if you just look up, um, playwright festivals for college students, Young Playwrights Festival, the Kennedy Center, unfortunately, used to have a really great one. They're not there anymore, but yeah, if you look for those kinds of opportunities where you can spend a week, spend a summer, spend a weekend with other playwrights in kind of an intensive. That's a great way to kind of jumpstart. And you can share, Dr. Ogden can share my email. So if any of you want to email me with questions or opportunities and things like that, I'm happy to help. Because when you show up to things like this is great that your professors created this for you, because this is a great start, just to start meeting people. And also read plays. Very important. Read plays, go to see plays. Very, very important.
Yeah, we
Sometimes
have a
where you live,
wonderful
yeah,
theater
yeah.
program at PCC with access to a lot of great plays the students are in, and East West Players and Noise Within Theater are right around the corner from us. So,
Go to see plays. Most theaters have like student discount prices. Read plays as many as you can. You'll learn a lot reading plays and seeing plays.
that's great. That leads us into our very last question. This is actually a question we ask all our writers, developed by Professor Brown. And she always asks, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to?
Oh my God. Um, oh God, that's a good question. I mean, I just finished The Bear. I'm not technically watching The Bear, but I just finished the new season of The Bear. I'm still watching Paradise. I haven't gotten through it yet. Um, and I'm watching Project Runway because
Nice.
like everything's so stressful. The news is so stressful. Like that's my like light TV.
Yes.
Um, What am I listening to? I listen to a lot of things. I mean, in terms of podcasts, I love This American Life. Like, it's just
Yeah.
great storytelling. Um,
PR, right? This American.
yeah, and I listen to this podcast, Higher Learning, which is, fun. It's news and pop culture and everything. Music wise. Uh, I like everything. I like right now, I guess I've been listening to SZA a lot, Doechii, but I also like, you know, Caribbean music. Yeah, I listen to everything. What am I reading? I've started a lot of books this summer that I haven't finished. For the play that I'm working on, I've been reading I'm blanking on the name of it. The Body Keeps the Score,
Oh,
which is about PTSD, trauma.
oh yeah.
And yeah, that's the book that I've been reading.
Wonderful.
That's a really intense book.
It's very intense. My play is about mental illness in a family and suicide, and so yeah, that's why I'm reading that book. It is pretty intense. That's why I watch Project Runway at night.
We all need something, right?
Hmm.
Okay, well, that was incredible. What an amazing experience to have a craft workshop with you and to get all these questions answered. We want to thank Franz Luce Benson again so much for
Thank
coming today.
you.
So
Thank you
thank
all
you
for
so much.
coming.
And we want to just give a shout out to the Pasadena Festival of Women Authors, the Pasadena Literary Alliance, which funds these amazing visiting writers for us. And so please do complete the survey in the chat, and we'll put it on the YouTube and the Facebook page. If you have watched this, that response is really important for our grant writing process. And so we appreciate you completing that. And one more round of applause for our amazing playwright craft talk by Franz Luce Benson. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
Thanks for
will
having
officially
me.
stop the live stream and the recording.